All right, so I recall the meeting to order. I'll start with Mark.
Yes, here.
Chris.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Carlo, and yes, we're all here in some in person, some not. So we have liaison report, town manager reports, Gray Coach Road, discussion and vote to turn on a street light, discussion on in-person early voting for the April election, logistics for the upcoming special election, and we have a cost estimate. A cost for the new active living center with some debt proposals in the packet, and we're going to preview the town meeting warrant, future agendas, and meeting minutes. So I'll start with the room. Since Karen is on Zoom, Chris, if you can help me for public comment, please.
Yep. Does anyone want to speak? Angela has her hand up.
Okay.
Is this new?
Yes.
It's huge. Wow. Angela Benda, town meeting member. In April 2022, town meeting members approved $110,000 for 4 parking kiosks. The discussion at that town meeting lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. The point of adding kiosks was to change behavior, increase turnover according to the then town manager. Park had studied the issue for over a year and had made recommendations to the select board. Town meeting was told the cost would be paid back by revenues generated, which would be earned in 1 to 3 years. Town meeting, park member, and downtown business owner Liz Whitelam said that there had been 10 public meetings and a survey to the town. There was plenty of opportunity for input. Town meeting member John Sasso, I went back and I watched the meeting recently, so that I'm quoting people. Town meeting member John Sasso said that he suspects that we'd get a lot of good data from the kiosks, mechanism to review and update over time. I think it was Select Board member Mark Doxer who responded, absolutely, we can see how long people are parking, make adjustments because the system is flexible. Former Select Board member and town meeting member Barry Berman added, the town got together and put all of the stakeholders together. We need to honor these volunteer hours. And he also talked about data to be gleaned from that. And Select Board member and Park Committee member Christopher Haley had this to say. Having the kiosks is the foundation we can build on. We can make everything free 6 months from now. We can make changes, charge 50 cents. The point is, we would have the foundation to change to whatever way the data is going. If people are complaining about X, Y, Z, we can change it. Only way that happens is if we have the kiosks in the first place. If the kiosks aren't there, there is no plan B. The parking committee put a lot of time into this, hearing from the residents. The foundation, the kiosk.
Angela, that's 2 minutes. I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up, please.
Need to be there. Without all of that, we are out of luck. How disappointing that the select board scrapped use of the upper lot kiosks after 2 weeks. The promise of the foundation to gather data on the parking habits scrapped. The possibility of still gathering that data while not charging anything, gone. What an absolute waste of time and money, a betrayal of the town meeting members who were asked to support this and who debated the issue and ultimately voted for this. I'm waiting to see that the kiosks are turned back on the lower lot as the hiatus period is ended, and I'm requesting that an accounting of how much of the appropriated money was approved by town meeting was actually spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else, Chris?
Tara, and then I'm not sure of.
David Carroll.
Okay.
So 2 more people.
I think you guys have like a page 3.
No,
Hang on just 1 second.
After. Thank you.
Good evening, Taylor Gregory, Pleasant Street. On November 19th, Mr. Bacci and Mr. Haley attacked my character when they called me a liar and misrepresented my public comments from prior meetings. During public comment on October 8th, I stated Mr. Bacci is a paid pickleball instructor that works in Reading. Let me clarify. Mr. Bacci is a paid pickleball instructor who advertises to Reading residents in Reading Facebook groups and thus benefits financially from increasing the popularity of pickleball in Reading. While allocating the remaining ARPA money, $87,000 was allocated to pickleball without any prior due diligence or proposals for work outlined to encumber the funds by the end of the year. I want to be clear, my issue is not with pickleball or that Mr. Bacci is an instructor, but it's the favoritism and the lack of disclosure at the beginning of these discussions that is troubling and goes against select board policies. I do not appreciate being called a liar and subsequently told I shouldn't be on a committee that I worked 13 months to establish as retaliation for holding this board accountable for its actions. On October 29th, I outlined the criteria from the State Ethics Commission for when a financial conflict of interest becomes an issue, and I asked Mr. Bacci and Mr. Haley to clarify the guidance they received from the Ethics Commission regarding MBTA communities, because I believe similar criteria applied to the tax rate discussion. Mr. Bacci and Mr. Haley are both commercial property owners in town, and when they vote on the commercial tax rate, they are voting on something that has a direct financial impact on them and their families. Again, this goes against select board and state ethics policies because the commercial tax rate does not apply to at least 10% of Reading residents. I find it hypocritical that Mr. Bacci and Mr. Haley attempted to hold me to a higher standard than they hold themselves. I am willing to clarify my statements when there's confusion or misunderstanding. Mr. Haley, we're still waiting for you to correct the record for when you falsely accused your colleague, Mr. Doxer, of blackmail and extortion. I hope Mr. Bacci and Mr. Haley will reflect on their actions over the past year and commit to doing better moving forward. I urge you both to set an example of what accountability looks like for public officials.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room, Chris?
Yep, one more.
Please.
This will be brief.
Just your name and address, please.
David Carroll, 33 Gray Coach Road.
Thanks.
My wife Kathy is here. We're seeking to to have power restored to the street light in front of our home. In 1992, every other street light was turned off so I have the wrong glasses, sorry, to conserve energy. This continued for a few years when a new homeowner and her elderly parents moved into the neighborhood. Expressing safety concerns due to poor lighting, they successfully petitioned the town to restore power. We agree with their findings. Another neighbor of ours had a, quote, slip and fall that resulted in a fractured kneecap. This was due to poor environmental concern, poor lighting and shading effect, and all that created some difficult conditions here, and including walkers coming with their dogs and that sort of thing. And so in general, we wanted this light missing in our immediate part of this neighborhood, and it's because it has been without power since 1993, and that was back when the energy crisis was happening. And that's what we're well beyond that at this point in stage. And so I'm just looking to have this issue resolved by fairly simply fixing the light fixture that's right in front of my house. We find that it's fairly reasonable to address this. We haven't seen any reason why we should withdraw our request. But I would put this before you to consider the reasonableness of replacing something after so many years, and it has been for so many years, not benefiting us in our location. And all it takes is a visit from the light department to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, anyone else in the room?
Anyone else? Once, twice? No one in the room.
Caitlin, anyone on Zoom?
No one raising their hand.
All right, we'll go with liaison reports. Mark, please.
Thanks, Carlo. So Very simple. The focus of my last few meetings have been on the Permanent Building Committee, focused on the Reading Center for Active Living. They're going to be presenting the cost estimates, and in addition from Bond Council, we have some information on some potential financing alternatives and what the tax impact would be, all for presentation tonight to the board, to be followed up at our next meeting with a vote which is already on the agenda. I'm going to leave it at that, and I will leave it to the folks that are presenting tonight.
Thank you. Chris?
Thanks, Carlo. Just real quick, the Charter Committee met last week or the week before, and we're 99% done with the charter, and we'll be finalizing everything at our next meeting and then taking a vote at a subsequent meeting. But that's pretty much it. The big discussion last week with Ivrea was regarding the RMLD section of the charter once again, which I think is getting put to rest, but we'll see what happens. And that's all I got.
Thank you. And I just have a question because I can't remember because you've been doing this for a while. This is not going to town meeting, just to the voters, or how does this work again?
It's a combination, so it's going to go to town meeting, it's going to go to the voters as well. There's like two different ways that we have to do it, et cetera, because some will require, what is it again, the governor or somebody to sign off on it, and some other portions don't. So,
You can do
Attorney
a
General.
formal petition, the legislature needs to sign off on it, or the Attorney General. There's different ways to do it. And it's not going to be on for this town meeting, it'll be on probably a future town meeting.
Correct.
Or a special town.
Okay, that's what I was kind of, the election before town meeting. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no, we were just wrapping it up because, we don't want to take up everyone else's time, you know what I mean, to volunteer on other boards, committees, et cetera. We're going to get it done early, and that'll be that.
Okay, gotcha. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I wanted to report tonight was that for everyone with a college student living in town or somebody who is now a senior heading to college next year, the Reading Scholarship Foundation the application is online and open now until March 7th. This is a hard deadline. It is a very easy application. Typically, they give out almost $200,000, and they are able to award it to about 150 students. This is an application that is valid for undergraduates. It's also valid for anyone who doesn't currently live in the town of Reading, but who attended the high school for 3 years. It's an unbelievable opportunity for Reading residents, and I encourage everyone to go to the ReadingScholarshipFoundation.org website and get those applications in. And I guess this message is really going to the parents because we know the students are busy, overwhelmed, and I know who's writing the checks. So thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad pickleball was mentioned in public comment because the third annual fundraiser for the RPPA is in the field house again on the 16th. We've had 2 successful ones already. I am not part of RPPA. I support their efforts. I have volunteered twice. I plan to volunteer again. And their money that they raise will go towards the pickleball courts over by Burbank. So I applaud their effort. They've come a long way in the past couple of years. So I think signups are officially open if you want lessons, if you want to play. And now we have a dedicated site finally. The past 2 years we didn't. When I say we, I mean them. And again, it's the 16th in the field house, and it's all a lot of fun. Family friendly, and they have their own Facebook page, and I'm sure they have a website, which I don't have in front of me right now. And that's all I have for now. So Matt?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things to report on. First of all, people have noticed tonight that there's a new podium in the room, so welcome to the new podium. It was actually created by one of our carpenters at facilities, Rich Price, so I want to thank him for that. The former podium is still in town use. It'll be used for outdoor events, but this one will stay in the select board room. We're still working on adjusting where it should actually go, but it's a beautiful podium, so we thank Rich for building that for us. We have a new face in the town clerk's office, Ann Cruikshank, started last week in Laura's office. She's hit the ground running. She's a Reading resident and doing a great job there. We did lose an employee over the last couple of weeks. That was Alex Rozicki, who was our assistant town engineer and left to be a town engineer in another town. So we do wish him well, and we'll be posting that position in the near future. We are making progress on the fire chief search. We've received several applications, and we're reviewing them now with the screening committee. We'll select candidates to participate in an assessment center, which will be held here on Friday, March 7th. And from there, selections will be made, and we're holding, I think, your last meeting in March to confirm in April, to confirm the appointment of the new fire chief. A reminder, I don't think people need the reminder, but I'll give the reminder anyway, that the MBTA Public Forum is next Tuesday, February 25th at 7 p.m. at the Pleasant Street Center. That's our largest room available. I've checked on all the other rooms, but RCTV will be there to film, and we'll also have Zoom available. So, and I recommend Zoom. You'll be able to speak at public comment if you wish. That might be the best option if the Pleasant Street Center gets filled up. So, and that'll be next week. Also on February 25th, there's a Black History Month event at the library. That begins at 6:30, and you can check the website out for more information there. We're finalizing, as I'd mentioned the last couple meetings, finalizing the budget. We did get some unfortunate news from Maya this week that our health insurance cost is going up about 13.5%, which is, we found out about that last week, and it's sort of across the board. We talked to several other towns who actually are facing larger increases. So Sharon and I are working through the budget. You know, we'll get through this. It was a little more than we anticipated in the budget, so we'll have more to come. But Maya, we met with the Maya rep today, and he warned us that this is sort of a trend for the next few years to keep an eye on. There's been issues with the cost of drug prices, special pharmacies, and just healthcare in general, and it's going up. It's trending almost like it was back in 2010. So, but I did send an email to the select board. I've let FinCom know. Like I said, Sharon and I and others are working on some solutions, but I did want to put that out there. And also, I did want to, again, mention the passing of former officer David Savio. It's a big loss for the town. So many people came out to show their support for him, and I know the police department has taken a big loss on this one. But I just want to say that the town is grateful for his service, and our hearts and prayers are with his family. So, and I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Matt. Jane, do you have anything to add, to update us on?
One brief thing. I want to extend my thanks to the DPW. Last week or the week before, I did a brief ride along during snow and ice operations during the day. And it was very informative experience. I learned a lot about how to avoid potholes or manhole covers. And that's terrifying, actually, if you don't know where it is in a big plow. And the importance of clearing out catch basins and all kinds of minutia around snow and ice, and we've received a lot of compliments from our DPW for their work lately, and they are working really, really hard right now. So I want to give my appreciation for taking me along for a ride and letting me film Bill and Tina. They did not let me touch the
Insurance.
No, I know the insurance, I don't drive. I was a good side seat rider, so, but I was grateful for that experience and to be able to, in my role as ombudsman, explain things more about detail to residents who have questions, and take a little of the load off whenever I can, which isn't often. So our DPW does a great job. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Carlo, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So, and maybe I see Chris in the room too, maybe there's some guidance that can be given about catch basins. Because with the last storm, with the ice and everything covering the catch basins, as the rain came down, many roads, mine, flooded like crazy. I had family members digging out catch basins. Is there something that we can give as guidance or better things? Because that was horrific.
I don't know if Chris says, I mean, we ask people to keep, if they can, keep the catch basins clean so things could drain out. keep the snow and ice away from it, but I know it's sometimes a tall task. I don't know, do we do anything to assist residents there, Chris?
We go around and dig out the critical catch basins, and then, we put out social media posts, if anyone can help us by cleaning up the catch basins. So,
We can put out another social media notification, clear your catch basins, clear out hydrants, we do that one too. So, yep.
I think it'd be great. I
Yeah,
think folks know
great
that
idea.
could be a big help because some of the roads, mine, were terrible.
We've had some
No,
bad
it's true.
flooding recently in Reading, so that's certainly clean.
Yep. It doesn't take much.
No.
No, thank you, Mark, for bringing that up, because I had the benefit of, when I grew up, retired firefighter, probably active when I was little, lived on our street. And he taught me at a very young age to shovel hydrants out that are in your neighborhood. And didn't really talk about the catch basins too much, but where I live now, we take care of the catch basin because Green Street goes downhill onto Main Street. So if anyone, that's usually a bigger problem, right? If that, because everything's going to pool up at the end of Green and Main or any street at that intersection. But if you live in a flat road, maybe not as much. But clearing the catch basins if you can, if you should know where they are if it's in your neighborhood. And thank you for bringing that up. The hydrant moved from my house to in front of Village Carpet, but I make sure I shovel that out, even though it wasn't a lot of snow. And I know the fire department goes around themselves, so thanks for bringing that up. Any resident that can help, and if I can make a comment real quick, I had a meeting this couple days ago before I came here, and in front of CVS and in front of Nero was such a hazard. I was so disappointed, and I'm not saying it's the town, but I could not believe how bad it was. And I just want all the businesses to know, you shouldn't just shovel in front of your door. You have to shovel the length of your storefront. That's a very busy area up by CVS, and it was treacherous the other day. Treacherous. You had to walk up along the wall, like shimmy along the wall, and then there's an opening, and then shimmy along the wall again. So I know we can't find people. We talked about this in the past, but it was really disappointing in those two spots, Nero and CVS. Sorry, I was venting there, but it was dangerous, very dangerous. They didn't shovel, put it that way, they didn't shovel, except in front of their door. So I'll end it there. On to the next agenda item is grade coach. We have public comment, it's in our packet. To me, this is a formality, but we should discuss it. If anyone has any comments, this is not a hearing. It's just a brief discussion and a vote. It totally makes sense to me. I'll start with the room, Mark.
Chris Cola's here, Carla. to give an
Oh,
update.
Chris is talking first, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I'll just be very brief. Mr. Carroll, basically summarized everything that I was going to say already. And the only thing I will add is that I did drive by the area, and this one streetlight is the last remaining streetlight on the street to not be turned back on. And it is dark in the area, so it seems like it would make sense.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Anyone in the room, guys?
Quick question, so I'm assuming, so it sounds like a great idea, I'm assuming it is converted to LED already, yes, or it could be before you turn it on?
Yeah, it will be, because all the other lights are LED in the neighborhood.
All good.
Chris, anything?
Yeah, just real quick. I guess back in 1991, the Board of Selectmen voted to turn this off. And, time passes, you get new data, and then we change our mind. And then we vote the other direction. That's typically how things go, regardless of how people might think.
Well, I think a lot of it now is, since we have switched to LED uses so much less energy, than previously, that it's really minimal, when you look at the consumption.
I find it hard to believe there was an energy crisis back in 1991, but I'll take their word for it. So, I was in junior high then, I think. Yes? No, probably 5th grade. So,
Comments, Karen?
yeah, sorry.
Do we have a motion? Please, let's vote.
Sure. Move to authorize the streetlight in front of 33 Gray Coach Road to be turned back on effective immediately.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. We'll roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Carlo, yes. After almost 30 years, all right, it's turned back on, hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward.
Enjoy.
All right. Next, we have, I'm assuming Laura's there, I can't see the whole room.
She is.
She's behind the podium.
We have discuss and vote on in-person early voting for April election only, and I think we've been looking forward to this for some years now, so I'll give it off to Laura to explain anything new or different.
So, as you may remember from the last couple of elections that I've been here, is that with the vote by mail when it comes to local elections, we automatically do vote by mail unless you as a board decide to opt out. With in-person early voting, we do not do in-person early voting unless you decide to opt in. The Board of Registrars need to make a recommendation to you to ask you if you would opt in to in-person early voting. It was impossible to get the Board of Registrars together as everybody is traveling to Florida to warmer weather. So I took a pulse of the board via email, and it was a 2-to-1 of holding in-person early voting during normal town hall hours the week before, which would be March 31st through April 3rd. So I'm asking if you would take a vote to hold in-person early voting during normal hours, Monday through Thursday the week before.
Thank you, which was done in the past.
Which is always, yes, since in-person early voting has been put in place for local elections, we've done it. I personally recommend it because if we don't have in-person early voting, then we're going to have to deal with a lot of absentees, which requires a lot of paperwork on the voters' part.
Mark, I'll kick it off with you. Any comments or?
Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense to do it. I think doing it during town hall hours means not additional cost in doing it that way. It allows people who aren't able to come in person to the regular voting or aren't comfortable with by mail, gives them another option. It would be great to keep a running tally of how many people do use it, just to see. I know that the answer is it's not a lot, but it's not insignificant either, which seems like it's a good reason to do it.
So I just want to clarify with there being extra cost. With the in-person early voting, there will be an additional election staff because I have to have at least 4 people working in-person early voting. So without in-person early voting and just doing absentee, we don't have to have election staff.
So do you have how many people from the clerk's office and how many people from election staff?
For in-person early voting would be all election staff.
And not clerk office people?
Correct. The clerk office people support them.
Got it. And how much cost are we talking about for 4 people for, is it a week you said?
Would have been nice if I had verified those numbers, but it's a
$2,000?
not even.
Not even. Thank you. I'm in favor.
Yeah, thank you. So am I. Chris?
Isn't it like $100 a person a day or something like that?
Something to that effect, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sounds good to me.
Thank you. Karen, any comments?
Thank you, Laura, for bringing in the opinion of the Board of Registrars. I'm happy to go along with their recommendations.
Yeah, I see no issue with this. I fully support it, and Laura's done a great job with it and with the staff. So do we have a motion, Chris?
Move to hold in-person early voting during normal town hall hours, March 31st through April 3rd.
Second. The
Thank
third,
you,
but I'm seconding.
Mark. Roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Probably yes, 4-0. Thank you. Moving right along. You can clean my computer. Discussion on logistics for holding special election, even though I know it shouldn't say elections, but I think we all know what we're talking about. So this is for May. We touched upon this briefly. So does anyone want to kick it off? And Laura's still in the room, and maybe we could leave it with Laura first. Sorry, Laura.
So I'm not quite sure what you were looking for with this agenda item. The talk of the election date is for both questions, for Killam and recalc, if I'm not mistaken, which means it would be one election in the month of May. I'm not sure what else you're looking for.
Yeah, I think we just, logistics as far as, for you, we have election, I think, on the 8th. And then we have town meeting, and then we have something again in May. So we just wanted to confirm, agree upon that you're, not that you can't handle it, but if there's any other issues that we should be aware about.
No, the only thing that will come up is that we'll still be certifying the April election when we start getting to sending out ballots for the May election. But I don't see any logistical problem between the two elections, because all the ballots will be in before we start sending ballots out for May.
And staffing wise, all the snowbirds will be back by
Yes.
the May election, please,
Correct.
hopefully.
We may have a little bit of an extra expense because I've already authorized, before the date was set for the special election, I authorized staff to be on vacation, and I'm not gonna take that back. So we may have a little bit extra expense to bring in some extra help to get through the May election. We'll see as it gets closer, but it should be good.
Laura, since you've been here, have we done something? When's the last time we did this?
A special election?
Yeah.
May of 2024.
Not for like a board member, or like for debt. When was the last time we did that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I'm sorry?
For debt, not like a special election for. For debt, what was
When we did the override, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Yeah. Was it 4 years ago we did the override, 2020?
About 7 years ago.
About 7 years ago. That was the last time we did it for debt.
And that was a special?
No, that was on the April. Special for a debt, I'd have to look that one up. I might be able to answer that question.
Okay, I'm just trying to encourage everybody that,
It would have been the library.
I was gonna think, I don't know if it was a special or not, but, this is a big one, folks, in May. And, we need just as good a turnout as in April, if not more. So I think all of us will advocate for that, the town will advocate for that, but we don't normally have a May election.
I don't think the library was a special.
This is MSBA, so I think maybe Wood maybe was the last one, I guess.
And that was before my time.
Right. All right, I just, any board member, any other comments? I just want to put this on air with Matt just to make sure we're all good, and Laura seems satisfied and ready to go, so I'm good.
So just so you're aware, I'll be back in a few weeks asking for in-person early voting for May.
Right. Thank you.
What is the date of the May election?
It has not been set yet, but the talk is May 13th.
And it's a Tuesday?
Correct.
Does it always have to be a Tuesday?
It doesn't have to be, but that's what the voters are used to. So generally we do it on a Tuesday.
So most likely May 13th.
That is the talk at this point, yes.
Yeah, we have to vote on that, correct, Laura? The exact date.
You as a board need to call that date.
Right. And what's the deadline for that? Do you remember? Do we all know this deadline?
45 days before something?
I have to be notified 35 days before, so you have to take the vote at least 36 days before, whatever that falls on.
I think I have it scheduled for the April 1st board meeting for you to vote on that, which gives us plenty of time.
That's enough time, yeah, okay.
Right.
All right. Chris, Mark in the room, any other comments? Karen, you as well?
So just to reiterate what Laura said, so there would be 2 questions that would be posed
Correct.
for that.
That's the plan at this point.
Right, one for each of the projects is kind of what's in discussion.
Correct.
Thanks.
There was a special town election in February of 2003 for debt exclusion.
Yeah, this was just on the agenda to get some clarification, and even though we didn't pick an exact date yet, that's the date we're shooting for. So it was just something briefly for us to discuss. Thank you for hanging around. And next, thank you, Laura.
All right,
And-
you guys have a great night.
Thanks. And next, we have in our packet, we have the presentation that we've all seen. And then what's more exciting is the schedule of payments that Sharon has put together. So I'll let Sharon, I think Sharon is on Zoom. Sharon, if you want to, well, sorry,
So-
does anyone want to speak on behalf of the project?
I think that the plan, Carlo, if it's all right with you, is that Brian, the OPM, Brian Hermatka, would do a brief presentation first in terms of the cost side of things, and then
Okay.
turn it to Sharon after that.
Yeah, just the cost, please. Okay. All right.
Updated slides.
Is it possible to connect this, or do we have slides elsewhere?
Caitlin has the slides, I think she'd be showing the updated slides.
I can put up the slides if you would like, or if you want to join, you can absolutely join and control it yourself.
Would you rather join on Zoom and control it, or how would you like to do it?
Yes. Actually, for time's sake, I think it's probably easier just to share the slides that you have.
Okay, I'll pull it up and you just tell me when to go to the next.
So these are the updated slides, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I'll be brief. I won't go through all the slides that were in your packet. So for anyone who's listening, I'm Brian Hermatka with Turner and Townsend Heary, owner's project manager for the Reading Center for Active Living project. So we prepared a presentation for you at your last board meeting, bringing everyone up to date on the design and what's been happening on the whole project. So tonight, the main focus is to talk about the cost, but I did want to touch on just a few things, just as a reminder, again, for people that are listening also to this project. So if we go to the next slide, just noting that this project has been in development for a really long time. We're looking at the 10-year mark now, so a lot of work has been done by the town to get us to where we are today. And then on the next slide, what this is really all about is that there's a need in the community because of the changing demographics, primarily the 60-plus population that's been growing significantly and has needs that need to be addressed. We're reaching close to 30% of the population at this point. And if you go to the next slide, just a few quick images just showing how the current Pleasant Street Center is not meeting those needs. So we have a site, if you go to the next slide, that we're all very excited about, had unanimous support, and it really creates a base there for us to have not only the needs of the seniors met, but it really brings a lot of community services together. We already have the ice rink, some ball fields, the wilderness walkway that's been discussed, and there's another project, as you're aware, of the pickleball courts. So that's all kind of on one site, which is a really nice fit. And if you go to the next slide. So what you've seen all the designs in the last meeting, so we're not going to go over that. But basically, we're looking at what amounts to a senior center for the 60-plus community, along with a gym. And, there's been conversations within the community about, why do you have the gym? Well, from what we found talking to other communities, those that didn't build the gym wish they had, and those that did were very happy. It gets a lot of use,
It's able to tie into the recreation and veteran services and some of their needs. And it also provides for the opportunity to use this as an emergency shelter, also allow boating and other needs of the town. So I know everyone wants to know about the cost, so let's jump into that. I think that's the next slide. So we have a lot of numbers here. I wanted to walk you through kind of the whole process, what we've been looking at from the beginning. So at the very top, you'll see the 28.3 to 29.4 million. Those were the initial numbers that came through the feasibility study that BH+A prepared. And there was a range because there was a range in square footage based on the options that were selected. Those numbers were based on a construction start in 2025, and they had a I think it was 2.6, I can't read very well, contingency built in. So the next numbers that you'll see are a higher range, of around 33 million. So why is that? Well, first, it's important to note that the current square footage of the facility is 28,380. So, it is slightly bigger, but also we're looking now at a different start time for construction, a year later. And we're also looking at some different economics that are happening in the local construction market. And because of that, we have contingencies built in to address those, so the contingency number is also a little bit higher. So that's kind of where we started, to get a sense of what these costs might be. We then, we looked at what all the neighboring communities had done, and we tried to narrow that down to projects that were most applicable to this, looking at projects that were done after COVID that had a similar size, and then tried to look at those past projects and then escalate the cost to the current plan for recalc when that would be built, right? Because that would then bring all those numbers together. And that gave us, a range of 26 to 34. So the feedback that we have heard from the community is that we really need to keep this project under $30 million. Last time I was here, I said that I felt confident that we would definitely do that. We understand that there's tax impacts for all the residents. Everyone's talking about that, especially with two projects at this time. That's something we really want to pay attention to and have the most cost-effective option for this particular project. So working together with BH+A and the Permanent Building Committee, we put together a budget for $27.9 million. So everyone was very pleased. I think we had even one of the building committee members that wasn't too excited if the project went over 28 million. So we were able to get it right in below that. And that was a lot of negotiation. And that is based on the same square footage I mentioned before, 28,380 square feet. So we didn't cut anything out from the building program. It's based on the same start date and the contingency. So if we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about how that budget was put together. So there are really two things that we're looking at, when we're trying to manage costs throughout the project. We want to have cost conscientious design, and that's an ongoing effort. It doesn't end now. We take these same principles and approaches to the project all the way through design development, construction documents, all the way through the construction process. So we're looking at comparing different materials in the project. What's the return on investment for the town? Some things, might have a price tag that is a little bit higher, but you're not really getting that much, and maybe that shouldn't be part of the project. So that's not just for this stage, but all the way through the design stage. Making sure that we have what we need. We don't have too much, but we also don't have too little, because that ends up being even more costly for the town down the road. Looking at design efficiencies through synergy, and we definitely have that on this project, where we're addressing not only the needs of the 60-plus community, but also some of the needs that veteran services and recreation also have. And then we've worked to tighten the schedule, which helps to reduce impacts from inflation. We've done that already a little bit on the design stage, design phase, and we're looking to get that project bid at most desirable times to get low bids. So all those items, and then
We also need to be responsible in how we manage the project. So we've been doing that throughout this stage. We had 2 cost estimates by 2 different companies. Both of those estimates were reconciled to arrive at the current cost for the project. So that's really important because it helps to make sure that you have the scope fully accounted for, and that when costs are changing, because it's not a static thing, that you have professionals that are looking at kind of both sides of the picture and then together can work out what the most realistic cost is for particular line items in the construction cost. We have a detailed project budget that we believe accounts for all the known costs to date and what we believe we'll encounter in the future. And we also have built-in contingencies to address those items that we can't quantify at this point. And then finally, we've discussed using alternates. So I'm not sure how familiar people are with those, but alternates allow us to design for what we really desire in the project. But when it comes time for the bids to come in, if the bids come in higher than what we'd like them, we're still able to move forward with the project without having to go back and change everything or go back to bid. At the same time, if the costs come in lower, it enables us to include certain things that otherwise wouldn't be possible. So that's a very effective way of managing the costs. So those are some of our strategies. Now let's look at what's in the budget. If you can go to the next slide. So as I said, $27.9 million. We've included all anticipated project costs, and we have a series of contingencies. So I'd like to kind of describe what each of those are because they each have a different purpose. So the first thing you see on there is the design and pricing contingency, which we're carrying a 10% contingency for, or $1.6 million. That is to address all the changes that are happening between the end of schematic design, which is where we are now, all the way through design development, and then this construction specifications and construction drawings. So there's still more decisions that need to be made, and we need to allow for that. Usually you have some items that go up in cost, some items that go down in cost during the process, but it's important to carry a contingency so that you don't overshoot the budget during that design stage. And that's a pretty standard amount for this type of project. The second one is inflation contingency. That's something that we're keeping a very close eye on. I feel like the number that we're carrying right now is neither too high nor too low for what we know to date. But that's something that we're going to be evaluating as we go through the further design stages. Again, we're going to do additional cost estimating during the design development stage and then also during the construction document stage. And if we find that the politics are causing construction costs to go up, we'll be addressing that through the design and as well as having this contingency and being able to work that through. The construction contingency, that is something that we don't want to touch at this point. That's reserved for the construction phase. So there are always unknown conditions on a construction project that you need to account for, and that's a pretty standard amount for that piece. And then finally, we have the owner's contingency. The owner's contingency is used to cover basically 2 different groups of things. It can be changes that are coming from the owner where they decide either during the design process or even during the construction process that they want to add something because something has changed into how the building is going to be used. Maybe they desire to upgrade the technology because more programs are now wanting to be facilitated at that location. Another coverage for that is to cover higher than expected costs during for some of the owner items. So that could be construction testing that's required. Maybe there's some problems that are uncovered on the site. The problems would be covered by the construction contingency, but the testing for those things would be carried by the owner. So that's a separate category. So I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I wanted to make sure that those items are clear. In the budget, we have also included the range road improvements to the second parking lot entrance. So all of that is built in. We've also carried the cost for a propane generator and an upgrade to triple pane windows. We felt that was a good decision because it's not only going to save on the energy usage of the facility, but it's also going to reduce the sound impacts to the users. So with the potential pickleball project nearby and also the gun range, I think that was a very good choice to include that. And then finally, we've carried some costs for a stone dust trail. That's something we're still working through with Conservation Commission, but that cost is built into this $27.9 million. What's not in there is just the pickleball project and the associated range road improvements. There were a number of other things that were discussed when we set the budget about what should be there, what shouldn't be there, but everything that's needed for this project is included right now for it to move forward. So we took these numbers, we put together a cash flow estimate based on the current schedule, and that was sent over to the town, and Sharon used that to help get us some data back on what the borrowing might look like, and she'll talk about that in a little bit. So if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, I guess that's what that is. So if we go to the next slide after that. So just an update on the project schedule. So right now, we're looking at approval in May. We'd be finishing the design for the rest of the year and get ready to go out to bid at the end of the year, first of the next year. And then we would expect construction to start in the first quarter of 2026. And if all goes well, we'd have the building open the fall of 2027. Go to the next slide. So as you know, we are continuing to spread the message. We'll have had a total of 7 public forums once we're all done with this phase. And if you go to the next slide, we also continue to spread the news through various sources of media. The communication group has done a great job with that. And Bob is here from the Daily Times Chronicle. Little shout out to Bob because he's done a great job of covering the meetings and making sure that those articles are out there so people get up to date on what's happening on the project. And next slide. So, as I mentioned, we have the Permanent Building Committee vote of approval that was received last week. So now we're looking for votes from the Select Board and Finance Committee before going to town meeting and then town vote in May. Next slide, please. So that's all I had. I'm happy to answer any questions before turning it over to Sharon to talk about the tax impacts.
Caitlin, do you have the debt schedules, or do you need me to share them?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question before we move on.
Just give me 1 second, Sharon. I can find them in the packet.
I actually have them. I could probably share them, but I think Karen has a question to start off.
You were muted, Carlos.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, Karen. Do you guys want to cover this first? And Karen's question, just want to do everything at the end?
I'm fine with whatever.
Any preference, Mark?
Nope, either way.
All right, Karen, good.
Okay, I think I just heard we're gonna build a brand new building that will be heated by a propane generator. Is that what I heard?
No, the propane generator is to produce electricity in the event that there's a power outage.
Okay, yeah, I haven't heard of a generator that big, so forgive me. Thank you for clarifying. So we were able to do away with a propane generator at the Killam School Building Committee, Killam School Building. So I am really confused as to why we would feel the need to have a propane generator for this building. And I'm not sure it's a matter of cost, it's a matter of meeting our obligations under the climate law in Massachusetts, as well as taking advantage of rebates and assistance from RMLD.
So the question as to why the generator is there is that it was requested by the fire department in order to enable the facility to serve as a shelter. So, right now the building has a kitchen, has showers, there's ample space for people to occupy. So in the event of an emergency where a shelter is needed, you would need that generator for the facility to keep running. I believe the current Pleasant Street Center facility also serves as a cooling center during the really hot periods for those people that are not able to stay cool. So this is also something that would serve in that capacity as well. So that's why it's in there. Ultimately it's a decision from the town, but based on the feedback we received so far, the fire department felt it was very important. After meeting with the permanent building committee, we did go back to the fire department to talk about that more, and they reiterated their feeling that that was a very important part of the project.
So, all right, so let me go back. So this is specifically for a cooling center. The need for a generator is to keep this building potentially to be used as a cooling center.
Yeah, the need for the generator is essentially to keep the facility operating if there's a power outage.
Yeah, we have battery backup for that. We have extremely reliable electricity here. But also, I can tell you, and I don't know if the permanent building committee has asked, that no one is using the senior center as a cooling center. And we also have an ice rink, and we also have other buildings that could be used as a cooling center. I'm having a real problem with this. The goal is not to be reducing our carbon emissions and not adding propane generators.
So let me
And I'm gonna give you real world data that says things have changed in our community so that even when we do offer cooling centers like the current senior center, like no one's taking advantage of it. They've got AC at home or whatever, they go into a library.
Okay, so what I can speak to is that you can't operate a facility on batteries. So battery backup is fine for emergency lighting in order to get people out of the building safely. But you can't keep a building operational just on batteries. There's too much demand for power.
Yeah, that sounds like a good excuse. I'm gonna tell you right now, we are not putting in no more propane fuel buildings for generators. And we had this issue at the school and we managed to get over it. So I'm gonna push back really hard that we are not installing more propane generators. There's no need for it in this time, in this world that we live in with the technology that we have and the reliability that we have. And so I would respectfully push back on the permanent building committee. This makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, yeah, I think it's something that, it wasn't the permanent building committee that said this generator needs to be included. It was because of safety.
You did mention.
Yeah.
So Matt, I'm gonna ask you to speak with our fire department. Things need to change.
Yeah.
We cannot keep doing the things the way we've been doing for the last 100 years. And I think we need to weigh the other municipal buildings that we already have with backup propane generators and the current usage and the current demand that we even have when we actually do have high heat days before we start investing in more carbon emission producing infrastructure.
Karen, if you don't mind, Chief Clark has his hand up and maybe he has some information that would be helpful. Chief Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't mean to speak on behalf of Chief Burns, but I've been at the meetings. This is to serve as an emergency shelter, not just as a cooling center.
Well, I'm gonna
So,
interrupt.
God forbid,
Chief Burns
Karen-
in the room or not? Did we just say we're gonna hear from Chief Burns or not?
Clark.
Karen, I was at the meetings, and as a police chief, I was involved in those meetings with the fire chief. So I'm trying to give you some understanding of what happened.
Yeah, no, I respect that and I appreciate your time. I just, that if this is the fire department that we need to talk to about this, then it's really not appropriate to have other departments weighing in. Does that make sense to you?
Well, this is from public safety then, Karen. How about that? So this is between the police chief and the fire chief. And I was at those meetings, and this is to serve as an emergency shelter. If God forbid we need to evacuate neighborhoods due to a gas leak, some incident going on, and we need to provide places where people can get meals, showers, or whatever. That was the intention of it. So this is from public safety. Yeah, so I'm speaking as one of the chiefs of public safety. That's trying to have you understand why we need this the way it is. Greg Burns has just raised his hand, so I'll get involved in him then.
Thank you.
Yeah, because this is pretty confusing because, you know, we were gonna hear from Chief Burns and next thing you know, you're speaking, so.
Well, Karen, don't be disrespectful. Chief Clark.
I'm not being disrespectful, I'm trying to understand why you
Don't
introduced
be
Chief
disrespectful.
Burns and then Chief Clark starts speaking.
Yeah.
It's pretty confusing to people at home and people in the room.
Well,
Hi, this is Joe Huggins, Director of Facilities.
Oh my God, so this isn't, can we just let Chief Burns speak if he would like to
No,
represent?
With all due respect, I want to clarify something. Greg, go ahead.
Thank you.
Chief Burns, if you could comment, that'd be great.
Yes, hi, thanks for, letting me speak. So, I do recommend that we do have a, emergency generator for, to be able to use the building as a backup shelter. We've used the current senior center and, for cooling centers, and I do agree with Karen that we don't get a lot of people that do come. But we also have opened it during periods, when there's been power outages or, natural gas outages in town, to provide heat for the residents and a place for them to come in and charge their phones and things like that, or just warm up. And the senior center works well for that because it's more of an inviting place for it, and it doesn't impact the schools. If there's something that impacts a small area of town, the senior center is ideal because we're not impacting the school day. If we use one of the schools as a shelter, we're basically taking over the building.
Great, may I also clarify, has the library been set up as an emergency shelter with a propane generator?
No, it doesn't, it's not able to serve like that.
So it does not have a propane generator?
No.
I'm surprised because I would have thought that during that project, that building would have also, seemed to, be a building that could meet this need. Very a welcoming place.
If I could just point out one other thing, in order to be a shelter, you would also need a kitchen and showers. So, basically those things that would be needed in a home to keep people healthy and clean, those types of things.
Yeah, and just one more comment. Usually, in our community, we're very fortunate with our demographics. So a lot of people can go to other homes and stay with friends and relatives and things like that. So in all likelihood, if we need to open a shelter, it's going to be on a smaller scale. And that's why this building can serve as that. It has parking, and it offers some things that a school wouldn't offer.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation, and I guess I should take comfort in a propane system when we get to the point where we do no longer need, or when we are no longer allowed to use fossil fuel, is much easier to convert than digging up the street and expanding our gas infrastructure. So thank you. I thank you for that, answering the questions and that additional information.
Thank you.
Sharon, are you ready?
Yes. So can you see my screen? Is it too small?
Too small.
Too small.
See if we can make it bigger. Not make it bigger. I guess I'm gonna have to just tell you what it says, and we can work that way. So when we got the numbers on the recal center, we ran those through our borrowing agent to get some estimates about impacts, depending on what term we pick for the borrowings. And so the first term that you're going to see here, and you can't see it, but I'll read it to you, is the 27.9 over 15 years. And the way they break that down for you is they give you an impact per 1,000, an impact per 100,000. So a 15-year borrowing for this type of project would be 30 cents per 1,000 or $29.78 per 100,000. So our assessor tells me that our median home right now is about $890. So in this 15-year borrowing, if you multiply 29.78 by 8.9, you would get $265.42 as estimated yearly impact of this project on an average median home. If we go to a 20-year borrowing, that $1,000 impact or per $1,000 is 24 cents per 1,000 or 24.45 per 100,000. That impact for that same 890,000 home is $217.61 for a 20-year borrowing. If we go to a 25-year borrowing, it's $21.55 per 100,000. $191.80 per year for the average home. And then a 30-year borrowing is about $20.58 per 100,000. And that's $183.25 per year for an $890,000 home. So we haven't kind of narrowed down exactly what direction we want to go yet. That's why I showed all of these. But the worst case scenario that you're looking at right now is a 15-year borrowing, and so the impact is $265.42 for that $890,000 home if we were to go with the 15. And the least amount is the $185 for, I think it was 30. So it's definitely, there's a lot of interest to consider when the treasurer and I will have to sit and look at both projects and try and determine what the best term would be, but this information is very helpful for your residents to get a feel about what projects are going to cost, what each project's going to cost, and be able to, figure out if these are options for them to vote yes for. Did you have any questions for me? Carl, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Thank you. So there's 4 options you presented. Quite not a huge shift, but the number I'm looking at is the interest. I know no one likes their taxes going up, and based on, I'll just speak first real quick on the last number, the 185 for 30 years on the average home is, per the survey, kind of on the higher end, if someone wants to correct me on that, of what they're willing to pay for a project. And this is going back, well over a year, if not 2 years. So things have changed drastically with inflation and supply, costs. But 265 to 185 is not a massive difference in my opinion, but the interest is a massive amount.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my takeaway on this. And I'll go to the room. Karen has her hand up. Karen, you want to go? Karen?
Yep, sure, thank you. Had to, the audio button, I appreciate that. And before I ask Sharon a question, let me just also say I got very upset about a propane fire generator. I'm very excited about the proposal for triple pane windows for this building. That's a really smart, so it's not completely all bad, but so Sharon, thank you for these. I appreciate you putting these out there at these different lengths of time. But to be clear, we haven't seen this come out of the school building committee yet, right?
We have similar calculations for the Killam project too as well, yes.
Okay.
But I was asked just to provide this to coincide with this presentation.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. I'm thinking ahead to town meeting. I am thinking ahead to the special election. This is the kind of information that needs to be easily accessible, and we don't need residents scrolling through 5 pages, and this is no way of criticism. I'm just thinking out loud a little bit. So we want to be able to concisely deliver to a resident who has a minute to come up to speed on what both projects, and each project costs for an average home, which, I don't know if we're still sticking with about $800,000 as an average, home in Reading. So this is a good step in the right direction. I just wanna make sure that we have both projects available, and I wanna make sure that we have a summary page and the average home value, so I'm adding up the numbers, yeah, as Carlo reiterated, right around, let's just round to 200 for this project. And that is assuming that we don't pay it off early or get any other additional assistance with it. But so people need to add this up with the cost of Killam and really know what they're voting for. But I appreciate the format you put this in. This is easy to understand. The only thing I had to do was the mental math. If 800 is the number, then then I'm looking for anywhere from high teens to mid 25 to figure out what it's going to cost for a median resident who wants to vote for this project. So thank you.
We are talking about potentially putting a calculator on the website. We're looking into that right now. This is just the preliminary numbers that came from our financial advisor. And I'm told that 890,000 is the median home.
Okay, so it's even higher this year. So it's,
yeah, I mean, the estimate of a median home has increased dramatically since we presented this back in 2022. I think we said it was 670 back then, and now it is 890 as an average home. So I do think that we're going to find the best way to present this on the website so that people can get themselves, get their value in there and determine what is the impact of both of these projects. So we're working with Jane Wellman to, figure out the best way to present this data so that it can be easily digested by the residents and know with some degree of certainty how impactful these two projects are for their home.
Yeah, the calculator is a great idea. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Sharon, before I let Mark and Chris go, it'd be helpful of having what's coming off the books as well.
So looking at the slide you're looking at here, the only debt payment that's outstanding is the library, the last payment at $1,279,700. The impact of that particular borrowing on that average home, $1,631 per 100,000. So that would be $145 falling off. I think we talked about back in 2022 about the average home would save about $300 from all the debt exclusions. So it's almost like 50-50. The high school and Wood End fell off last year, and now we have the one remaining debt payment from the library. So it's about 50-50, about $300 total. But it's so hard to see a savings of $300 when your taxes are going up and your assessed value is going up so high so quickly. But it is buried in there, and that's the final debt payment that you see on the screen, the $1,279,700 for $145 for an average home.
Thank you. Mark or Chris, who wants to go first?
Me first, Mark? I guess
Sure.
so. Well, whatever. A couple things. I used to watch The Walking Dead before it got terrible when they got rid of Rick. Spoiler. So I'm well aware that the senior center is going to be used as a shelter in like emergency situations. We're not going to be running this thing like 275 days a year on a propane generator, right? This is only when the zombies come and when like bad stuff happens, right?
That's right, yep.
This isn't a day-to-day operation, just so we're clear. And I have my own thoughts on the 2050 thing. That will never happen, even though they're saying it's going to happen. I've been very clear on this multiple times in the past. It's great to have a goal because you can have a goal to kind of look forward to, but it ain't ever happening. Fossil fuels are never going away. And I say that owning an EV, etc., I'm just being real on things. So I do appreciate that the generator is going to get used here in an emergency situation because at Killam it can't be, as you mentioned, it's going to have showers and all these other scenarios. The other thing is that I know that I had mentioned previously that we had to come under 30 million for me to think that this is going to pass, etc. And it's good to see that it's 27.9. But I guess don't we usually do? Wasn't the library and stuff 10 years of debt, and now we're breaking it out into 15, 20? Or am I incorrect in that, Sharon?
It was a 10-year borrowing. I think the reason I started off with 15 was because there's 2 projects at once. And the Killam, I think the best we're going to be able to do is a 20-year borrowing. So the 15 was kind of the minimal level that I thought we could go with. I think if we went with 10, it might be too much.
I would think so as well. Because for me, the numbers that I'm looking at is all the final number on the end of each page. So the 27.9 ends up really costing us 36, most likely, as long as everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, minimizing the interest, absolutely.
So for me, I opted for my first house a 30-year mortgage. Then the second one that I got was 15 because I'd rather pay it off earlier and not have to pay all this interest, etc. So it's good to see that, you know, we have options in here. Who ultimately is going to decide on which option we pick?
So the treasurer is the one who picks the term of borrowings. So we would work together on this and determine what we think is the best course of action for each debt offering. But I feel like it's good to give the options and what those options mean in terms of each individual tax bill. Just, you know, so people have their worst case scenario. So I'm looking at a 15-year is my worst case scenario for this, and 20 years is your worst case scenario for Killam. Those are the shortest terms we're looking at currently, so that people have an idea. Well, if that's the case, if 15 is the shortest term they're looking at for the senior center, and 20 for Killam, my max increase on my taxes is X, to have that information available. But we haven't decided officially where we're going with it. But when you look at the numbers for Killam particularly, it's very telling. You know, to save a household $60 from 25 years to 20, it cost us $20 million to do that. And so we really have to weigh all those decisions very carefully, because there's a lot of interest attached to these projects. So the quicker we can pay them off, the better. But we also want to be mindful of the total amount that it's going to impact that average taxpayer.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's good to have these numbers outlined here for everybody to see. I think for me, it's hard to square away how we're going to get past the survey results. And I say that as someone in a unique position that I pay 100% of the tax in Reading through the split tax, because I own a business. I'm paying everything. I'm not at the luxury I get to do X, Y, Z or whatever. I'm paying 100% of the tax in Reading. And I know for me, I've said multiple times, I'm fortunate to be able to afford all of these numbers on here. Whatever bracket you put me in, I'm going to be good with that. And I'm sympathetic, and I understand that the seniors built Reading. You know what I mean? It's through generations of everything that, you know, I just walked in here and all these other things were given to me that other people had to pay for. So I'm being supportive of both projects in town. But I think we have to square away how we're going to get by the results of people saying that they don't want to spend over 200 or over 100. Like, none of these numbers, unless you scale all the way down to the end, where it jumps out at $50 million that we're paying on this. If someone said the new senior center is $50 million, nobody's going to go ahead and do that at all. So I'm just wondering how we're going to overcome that hurdle, I guess. I want this to be successful. I want it to pass the first time around. Because of inflation and everything else that you mentioned on here, who knows what's going to happen? It could go up, could go down. Most likely everything goes up. So to have a delay of a year and have it end up costing $2-3 million more because we did that, that's not a good look either. And then by the time it gets built and all this, like, a lot of people that wanted it, unfortunately, might not be around to end up enjoying it. So I just don't know. I don't know how to say what I want to say without getting destroyed for saying it. But I think a lot of people, particularly involved with this know exactly what I'm saying. And it is very unfortunate that I'm gonna have to be the one that ends up broaching the subject on things. I want it to pass. The numbers with this, I don't know. I just don't want to hear from you, Mark. I know, like, you've spent 6 years on this. You don't want to go out at the end and not have this succeed. Am I right? I think,
Sure.
like, we gotta do something, you know?
Mark?
Thanks. So, I hear all the points. I think you gotta start at the top for a second. The needs drive the discussion. The needs drive what we're doing. It's not that we're building a Taj Mahal. It's also not that we're gonna build something that we're gonna look back on and say, boy, we blew it. We built the wrong thing. It's too small. It's not gonna accommodate the needs of the community. 30% of this community is gonna be age 60 plus in the next few years, which is pretty amazing. The way that I view this is there are two important things that the town needs to support two biggest pieces of the community, essentially. There's this center, which is gonna serve the seniors and the entire community. There's the Killam School, which I could argue 20 years ago needed to be replaced, because it did. Where are we in terms of how to do it? We did a survey, and in a survey, we threw out some questions with people not really knowing necessarily what the numbers meant or what you could get. And you know, some people latch onto that, that's fine. I think the reality of that is that the folks that talked about more of a community center, I think were more willing to spend about $200 without really knowing what it was, and that was a few years ago. So to, I think Carlo's earlier point, I think we're right in range in some of the, you know, the 15, 20, 25 year time frame. I think that's kind of what the community said it was expecting in terms of what was going to go on. What Sharon was talking about, between the three projects that we finished, we stopped paying for from between July of 25 and July of 26 coming, is you would have seen another $300 on your taxes had we not paid those off. Since we did pay them off, you're not paying that $300. So in essence, we finished some buildings, now we're working on some new buildings. This town has been really smart financially, fiscally, thinking about, can we pay things off quickly so we don't pay as much interest? Your example, Chris, on the mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, if you look at the contract you signed on that for whatever mortgage amount you had and how much it says you're gonna pay over time, it's crazy. You look at it and go, oh my God, you know, it's 4 times what I started with. The town has been really smart figuring out what's the right way to do it. How do we make it work so it works for most of the residents? We minimize the interest that we have to pay, but there's a balance. We need to figure out how to make that work. We have 2 projects. They both need to happen. We are looking at things that are 50-year buildings. And we're figuring out, how do we view these? How do we, as a community, figure out what's the right thing to do? I think the right thing to do is to take a look at the work that, and I want to commend in saying this, the work that the Permanent Building Committee has done on both projects, but I'm going to talk about Recal. It's been amazing, figuring out how do we reconcile the needs with how to take it forward, with how to do it at the most reasonable price, with understanding how to minimize the impacts of inflation, by carrying, in essence, I think it's a 24% contingency between the 4 categories. So buffering for the things that we know about and some of the ones that we don't know about. So it minimizes the chance of surprises that are going to take place after that. Everything's been done completely responsibly. I think the most important thing that we can do now is get out to the community the message that says, hey, these are the 2 priorities for the community. You're seeing everything about them. You have the opportunity to ask questions, to talk about them, to make sure you understand what it means to you. Because most of the people in the room tonight, but most of the people in this community either are in the 60 plus category and or they've got kids in the schools. They're gonna have a chance to use the Recal Center, and certainly they're gonna use the Killam School if you're in the Killam district. This is an opportunity this community has. I've been working on it for 6 plus years. The project's been going on for 10 years. The time for this is now. I think this is the right project, it's the right scope. I think it's being done very responsibly. I think the community gets so much benefit out of this. I think that if we took care of these two buildings, took care of the roads, I'd be happy and done. We do some other things though too that are important. Please don't minimize that. But these are the highest priorities that we have in the community to serve the people who are here. And I've been very committed to that. A lot of people in this room have. I want to commend the folks who have worked on it. And I want to make sure that we don't kind of shortchange what we're doing. Reading has been very smart. I think this is right on track with that being smart. That's the right way to do it. And I see my colleague John Coote in the room, who was one of the people who felt that 28 was the max number.
Absolutely.
And guess what? It's under. Folks, I appreciate that, taxes are a burden. They should be used for the right things. I think the one thing we haven't talked about yet that we do need to talk about is, are there other ways that we can reduce the amount of debt that's required? At the last Finance Committee Financial Forum, I brought up the notion of potentially using an amount of free cash to reduce the amount of the borrowing that's required. This board has talked about the possibilities of finding ways to monetize the Pleasant Street Center as another way of potentially reducing the amount of money that's required. I think those are both ideas that we should pursue and talk about and see what makes the most sense. Again, this community, we're working to figure out what's the right way to do this. They're the right projects. I believe they're the right amounts. We've heard from Sharon on borrowing and how it might work in terms of 15, 20, 25 years. I think that's right. I think that it's important people hear that, they look at it, they understand what it means to them, and they make their decision on what they're going to do.
Thank you, Mark. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just, I wanted to, before we leave this topic, the history that we've had in this community is that we take on the debt we are required to by law, but we also are very smart about refinancing and retiring debt when we can. So I just want to, I expect that Sharon, you and the treasurer will make a recommendation based on trade-offs with rates and interest. And I appreciate you keeping in mind that, as Mark said, taxes are a burden for a lot of people in this community. So I think we need to, I want to see longer terms. These are 50-year buildings. I don't want to see a 10-year term, and I appreciate there wasn't one here tonight. I would love to keep the door open to 20 years for the senior center, and why not 25? And I do have a specific question regarding the Killam School. Two questions, and these are for Sharon. Okay, so why are we going to be limited at 20 years for a 50-year school? That'd be one question. And the other thing is, what thought have we put into communicating that while we're obligated to go and bond for the full price of these two very necessary projects, if we are, the fact that we will be getting in excess of $40 million in grants for the Killam School, that will more than pay for the cost of this project and could be specifically, the community needs to understand that we're getting grants that will help pay for this other smaller project. I'm gonna keep calling it a 2-for-1. We are a very fortunate position. There are communities out there that are building public safety buildings. They are building senior centers. They are not getting, and they're building schools, and they're not getting any funding from the MSBA. So I think that needs to be part of the message, that while these numbers are going to be very scary to a lot of people, there's no question about that. We need to communicate that we are getting grants. We are getting millions of dollars in grants. We have the ability to pay off this debt early. We have the ability to refinance when rates move, things like that. And I don't mean, so Sharon, on these two items, I know I'm speaking to the choir, so I don't mean to do that. But I did want to just probe a little bit about why you think Killam would be stuck at 20 years max, and any thoughts you might already have on, communicating how you know, the fact that we're so fortunate to be getting the school grant funding and the IRA funding on possibly both of these buildings will help ultimately bring down the cost of these two projects.
But the reason I'm not entertaining the longer borrowing for Killam is the sheer interest alone is mind-boggling. You know, like I said, when I was looking at a 25 and a 20, to save a household member $60 a year, I was gonna pay $20 million more in interest to go to 25 from 20. So when you look at the overall interest, we're trying to be smart and see where's that spot where we can pay this off quicker. Obviously refunding the debt later could be an option. That's certainly what we did with the high school. But we're going to, you know, weigh everything very carefully. We haven't decided anything for sure, but it did look, I mean, if you look at, I want to see if I can pull up for you the Killam numbers, because I did not put them in the packet because I didn't know we were going to talk about them. But that project, because of its size, the interest just, it's monumental. It's absolutely out of control to see what you pay in interest the longer you do that project, you know, the longer you borrow for that project. I'm not seeing it on my thing though. Let's see where I have it.
I think we just all keep in mind, as many of us are also town meeting members, it comes right down to the both perspectives. As a town, how can we save the most money, be most efficient with our tax dollars, but also the individual homeowner who may say, who makes a similar decision every time they finance a car or get a new mortgage. They look at 15, they look at 20, they look at 30, they look at 40. And what a lot of people do is they finance for 30 or 40 and pay it on a 20-year schedule. But what that does is give them the flexibility that if insurance continues to go up 13% a year, we run into some other money crunches, we're on the hook for the lower number, even though, you know, generally as a town, we've been aggressive and like when we could afford it, we would pay things down. So it's kind of it's not that different from what each individual resident or business.
So I can tell you what I was thinking, and I brought up on the screen the Killam, because I originally defaulted to the 30-year borrowing, but it's very
Can I interrupt? Killam is on the agenda. I don't want to stray away from the agenda. It's important, but it's not on the agenda, Sharon. Thank you.
Fair enough. Could we, maybe I'll just at the end of the meeting, let's have another agenda item where we talk about both of these in concert, because, Mr. Chair, we are going to be putting the warrant together and we'll get figured out.
I don't disagree, but correct.
Fair enough. I get it. Yep.
Do you want me to answer the question at all though, in terms of what's driving us to a direction? Carlo?
I think on the active living center, yes, I think you.
Well, here's what I'll just say to you is that interest is definitely a part of it, but we're looking at the average, the impact of both projects on the average home.
Right.
And then you do have to consider how much is that average household going to save by me going from a 20 to a 25, from a 25 to a 20, or from a 20 to a 15, because the quicker this debt is paid off, better in terms of how much interest you pay, and also opens up the ability to have other projects come in, other schools that need modifications, other projects that need to come in and be borrowed for. So there's almost always something in the pipeline that we have to be concerned about. So we don't really want to tie in for 30 years, especially not when the interest is going to, be so extreme. And so that's where we're trying to balance. We're trying to get to a spot where we think it's a reasonable fit for most people.
No, I agree and thank you. And Karen asked some very good questions. And I think as individuals, as board members, I'm looking at the big picture, right? Interest is hard money. Yes, we can refinance down the road, consolidate debt, all the fun mumbo jumbo stuff with financing. But initially, we have to pick a number. 10, 25, 30, 15 for both projects. And we're going to look to our CFO and town treasurer for guidance. But I think, where Karen was, the direction she was pointing in is that it's good to have this information because you know, I don't know how much the town is gonna have to say. You know, it's really gonna be staff and the two big boards as far as guidance, and maybe not even. I mean, I don't think we vote on what interest rate schedule we want to be on, to my recollection. But these are important slides, and the Killam slides are going to also be important. And I think, you know, we're going to have at least one more financial forum before town meeting that we have to schedule with all the big boards to go over this high level stuff. Because, yeah, 30-year mortgage and a 15-year mortgage is night and day. If you can afford a 15-year, it makes total sense to do it. If you can't, compromise and do 25 or 20. But anyway, I have a quick question for, off this topic, but on the topic, is there was conflicting things about Range Road. I saw Range Road included improvements, then I saw Range Road not included. So can I get some clarification on what that means?
Yeah, sure. There's the part that's included would be the improvements that are needed to bring the road all the way up to both parking lot entrances for the recal facility. What's not included is the part of the road that goes beyond that goes parallel to where the pickleball courts are planned. So the pickleball courts would handle their own portion of the road.
Okay, all right, thank you. I was wondering what that meant. Okay, and I don't think it was mentioned. Thank you. That was my main question on the slides, and I'm glad it came in under 30 million. But you know, for me, surveys are very timely and convenient. They're good measures. But I think if we took the same survey now with what everything costs, and again, that will be reflective of what everything costs now, right? Not everything's going to cost in the future. So I think, you know, surveys are always a good measure, but I think if we have the same exact survey that we had, I think we get different results. Generally, I'm not saying pro or con, I'm saying we would get different results because we're in a different environment. You know, every time we have the split tax hearing, I mentioned this year is going to be worse than the previous year, and blah, blah, blah. And some people it is, some people it isn't. Small business owners, it's not pretty out there. So I'm sure some homeowners too as well. So we have to really be thoughtful of what schedule gets picked, what makes more sense from Sharon's point of view. And town meeting, I'm sure will have a lot to say on these two topics in April. So I'm not going to take away from that, because that'll be a very important debate on the floor. And hopefully, you know, obviously this will be part of the presentation in the articles and so on. So that's all I have for now. I agree with Mark. Both these projects are very important to the community, and we have to support them. Each individual person will make their own decision and how it impacts them personally on their taxes. You know, I'm never going to notice the $300 coming off. You know, that's just me. I don't think anyone else will notice it because our assessments have gone up so much. I mean, it's staggering. And my assessments is almost doubled since when I bought the house in 2006, almost 20 years ago. So, and that's for a lot of us. So I'll leave it there. If anyone wants to just make some final comments, I think we've all had a chance to speak, but I don't want to go too long on this topic. But if anyone wants to have some final thoughts, this is very important. I'll start with the room. If anybody has any final thoughts.
Just quick, Carlo, I would encourage the community to get involved and to hear about what's going on with these projects, to understand what they are, what it's going to mean to you in terms of use, what it's going to mean to you in terms of taxes. And armed with that information, and I don't think you need to spend hours and hours, but I think listening to some of the activities, taking a look at some of the presentations, I think this calculator is a great idea. We've talked about building that so you can see what the impact is. But learning a little bit about it, I think will serve you really, really well, and you'll understand the importance of it to you, and you'll make your decision. I think that's the right thing to do. I encourage that for town meeting members first, obviously, since they'll get the first look at it, and then the voters get a look at it afterward. But there are a lot of public forums for both projects individually, and talk about putting one together so the community can see all these different things that are taking place. They're not happening in separate, they happened in separate stovepipes to get started, but they're coming together. And it's important that everybody understands that. We know that it's big impact. We know that these are big activities for the community. We've just taken off, we've just finished 3 projects. We've just finished paying for 3 building projects. So we're used to handling multiple things. Please take a look.
Thank you, Mark. Chris, anything?
Thanks, Carlo. No, I agree with Mark. The issue is going to end up being is the outreach beyond this room. We all understand it way too much for our own good, but it's everybody else that's going to be the decider in this. I don't see it being by 4 votes or whatever scenario, but we all understand it. It's the outreach that's going to happen. And no matter how much outreach you do, it's not going to be enough. We all know that. It is what it is. And I guess my last question, Sharon, just looking at the numbers, if hypothetically on a 10-year debt, would it be like 33? Because the jump between 15 and 20 is roughly 3 million, so I'm just minusing it the other way? Or is that wrong to think like that if you were at a 10?
Oh, are you wanting me to estimate what 10 would look like?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it'd probably be somewhere in that vicinity, but I wouldn't want to quote the 10 without actually running the numbers. Because also the other thing that changes when you do shorter terms is the actual interest rate, and she has not given me a 10. I probably could have requested a 10, but I kind of thought that might be a little too aggressive. So, but I can still request a 10 and look at it and see how that works. I mean, I feel like these schedules are very telling, because when you see the interest pile up on that column, you start to recognize, okay, let me calculate what the average taxpayer is paying for these different terms, and how much are they saving for me paying this additional $20 million of interest to go to 25 from 20, or from 20 to 30. So the interest plays a very big role here.
So I guess by that comment, that typically 10 years is going to be a better interest rate than 15 though, right?
My guess would be yes.
Okay.
I probably will request a 10 to look at, but I didn't anticipate it would be a selection that we could make.
All right, thank you.
Karen, anything? Final thoughts?
Yeah, just again, so we can borrow at a certain, I guess we just need to make sure that we let the residents and the voters weigh in, that, you know, because they need to look at each one of their budgets, and the reality is we can absolutely pay off debt that we borrow early, and people understand that metaphor. So Sharon, I appreciate you already looking at the range of options. I am interested as well as knowing what, you know, some other communities are generally choosing for their projects, just to make sure we're being realistic with what we're asking the residents to take on. And certainly there's no reason for us to try to pay these projects off in 10 years. There just isn't. So anyway,
We're not really meaning that as an option. No, yeah. I mean, but realistically, we were looking at potentially 25 for both, for 20 and 15. You know,
I don't think we should take that off the table.
Yeah.
So we're town meeting to the voters. Yeah. Okay.
We're
But you guys will let us know if there's, and certainly we shouldn't assume that we're going to keep it till the very end. We will. One or both of them is going to get paid down significantly because we are getting $40 million in reimbursement on kill. So I'm not sure how we communicate that to the residents, but this is a good start.
It would be part of the overall presentation, just because you have to kind of say, we have to authorize the whole project. So that we have the cash flow to keep going, even if we haven't gotten our reimbursement. So they're going to see a number, and it's the total project, and then they're going to see MSBA's kick in for that project and what our share looks like. And they are really good. I mean, much better than I've seen in years past. When I was an auditor, you wouldn't get your money until the end. we're getting our money as we go, which is a wonderful way to do it. And so there's less need to borrow for the MSBA's portion because they're paying as they go. As we go, we submit our invoices for reimbursement and they're paying their share of the eligible invoices. So there's that readily coming in, the income from the MSBA that we don't really have to borrow for. But they do make us authorize the entire amount in case there is a need for us to borrow the whole thing for cash flow. So it's important that we hear what the residents tell us in terms of what they would like to see in terms of how long we borrow it for. But we've got to weigh everything very heavily and decide, obviously what the opinion of the residents is very important to us as well. When we're looking at a 20 and a 15, the overall impact for an average home was just $999 a year. So it just depends on what the value of your home is, how impactful this is going to be. And so we're going to have to run a lot of numbers to figure out where's that sweet spot where most people are going to be okay.
And Carl made an excellent point. We do have another at least one more financial forum where we can really get more into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, I think we should get a small golf clap for myself for running the meeting on time. And next,
Not over yet.
What do you say?
Not over yet, Carlo.
Not over yet.
Not over yet.
One time. Thank you. Next is Matt with the warrant.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
So I can move on to previewing the annual town meeting warrant. I'll go through it, fairly briefly. If there's questions, feel free to ask, but also you don't have to close the warrant until next meeting. So if you have questions in between meetings, if I can provide more information, I'll do that. It's a pretty standard warrant. You know that the Killam and the recount are going to be on a separate warrant for a special town meeting, so those aren't included on this warrant preview. Sharon is going to stay on and help if there's any questions and talk about the financial articles, which there are usually 5 or 6 pretty important financial articles. There's also other staff on the call if we have any questions. So I'll just go through it one by one and feel free to interrupt if you have questions as I go on. First, Article 1 is always the local election. That's scheduled. Written reports is Article 2, if there's any written reports. Instructions is Article 3, and we usually defer that to the last night. That's instructional motions. Article 4 is amending the capital improvement plan, and there are going to be some amendments to the capital improvement plan based on requests of different departments. Sharon, did you want to say anything more about Article 4 and Article 5, which would be amending the budget? And also, oh good.
Okay, yeah.
Caitlin, Sharon. Yep.
So largely what's happening under Article 4, debt and capital, as you know, is 5% of our budget. And we did have some planned debt for the Haven Street project that we didn't end up leaving there. We took it off. And so that meant a rebalancing of the capital plan. So we had done a little of that for fiscal 25 at November town meeting, where we took away the debt service and we added more capital. In fiscal 2026, we have the same exercise happening where debt service that was planned goes away because we decided not to go with the borrowing for that project, and we're doing more capital. What we end up doing for that capital keeps changing because the information about what priorities are has changed a little bit, and in terms of pricing, sometimes we get updated information on a daily. We understand that we have an elevator at the Main Street Fire Station that needs to be replaced, and we had hoped to do that in fiscal 26. But we're talking about there's some more information coming in that it might be a little bit more expensive and might need to be pushed out one more year. So it's a constantly moving thing when it comes to the capital, trying to keep that 5% balance, making sure that we're investing in our capital assets, whatever remains after our debt service is paid. So that's pretty much what's always happening. Article 4 is just getting that rebalance back and reprioritizing and repricing what we have on our capital plan.
Great. And Article 5 would be to amend the current year budget, not the fiscal 26 budget that we'll be presenting later in the articles, but amending this budget. I think we will have some budget amendments. Sharon, did you want to go into any detail on that?
There's quite a bit going on for the fiscal 25 budget. When we built the budget for fiscal 25, I think we had our benefits up 5.5%, and the actual number was 5.65%. So there's a need for a little bit of adjustment in the benefits area. We have quite a few retirements happening in the fire department, which requires us to pay out vacation time, and also increases our overtime as well when we have retirements. Open positions tend to, especially with fire and police where they have minimum manning, overtime tends to go up. And so that those adjustments will appear. We are seeing a lot more snow and ice than we have in the last couple of years. So there will definitely be a need for an ask for snow and ice. We're doing everything we can to minimize the number by bringing down any savings we do see in our budget due to attrition savings or anything like that within the budget. We're trying to take any savings we have and apply it towards the needs that we have at April town meeting. It is a higher number than I'm used to seeing, but we haven't had snow and ice in the last couple of years hit us this hard. So I'm expecting the number to be somewhere in that $400,000 to $500,000 of free cash, which is high, but also, you know, we are being conservative in asking for, you know, what we think we might need, but being conservative, so some of it would go back to free cash. Anyway, we just have to get ourselves through this winter with more snow than we've seen in the last couple of years. And so we're trying really hard to minimize that number that we're asking under Article 5 because we're very sensitive to how much free cash we're using.
Okay, we can blame Chris for the snow and ice increase this year, right? Okay, so that's Article 5. Article 6, approve payment of prior year's bills. It's too early to know if we have any prior year bills, but if we don't, then we just table it. But it's good to have on there in case anything pops up as a surprise. Article 7 is always the OPEB article. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefit Liabilities. And we do try to fund OPEB to some extent every year. That'll be the same this year. I don't know, Sharon, did you have anything to say about OPEB at all?
Yeah, so we're funding at a lower level in fiscal 25 than we had been because we did take down our OPEB number because of our health insurance being up a little bit more than we had originally projected when we put our accommodated costs together last year. So we reduced it to 200,000 from 500,000. So in fiscal 26, we had put it back to 500,000, which is our typical general fund funding for OPEB. But because we had that health insurance surprise, a similar thing is happening in fiscal 26 where we're looking to adjust. So the OPEB has been that place where we hedge and keep money in case it's needed. And the last couple of years, we've actually needed it, which in the past, we tend to put more into OPEB than we have taken from OPEB. So the last couple of years have been kind of the switch. It's been taking a little funding away from OPEB to fund, shortfalls in health insurance, which in the past, it's usually savings in health insurance going to OPEB. So it's kind of been a little bit of a switch the last couple of years.
Okay. Article 8 is approving the revolving funds. This is something we do every year. We establish limits on the revolving funds. The inspection revolving funds, we list projects that are coming on and coming off. 25 Haven Street Rite Aid is coming off. McDonald's is coming off. We have a project at 346-48 Main Street that's coming on. The real exciting part about this article this year is we're asking to establish a new revolving fund. This is the Elder and Human Services revolving fund, and this will act similar to the recreation revolving fund, where when people pay in to have those classes, whatever they have, we're able to retain those in a revolving fund and keep that. It doesn't go to the general fund if this passes, and it's something that Jenna and Chris and everybody at the senior center really wanted for a long time, and I think we're able to do it this year. So there's language in there to establish that Elder and Human Services revolving fund in this article. The next two articles are the HERO Act, which is something that's fairly new, a new piece of legislation. And it allows some new exemptions for veterans. These are veterans articles. So then there's actually two parts of it the towns can adopt. So the first part, part one, is essentially just a COLA on an existing veterans benefit. So they add in a cost of living based on the CIP, Consumer Price Index, every year. So that's a little bit of an increase. And part two is actually a new exemption that you can add for veterans, and you could do that up to 100%. I put in 100% after consulting with Victor. Victor does support this, as well as our veterans agent. This will help our veterans out a little bit on their tax bill. So that could, essentially double the exemption they get. I could send you, there's a bulletin that got put out by DOR when this passed over the summer. I could send you that. It gets a little complicated into which laws it affects, but essentially it's what I said it was, a COLA and a new exemption for veterans. I think it's a good thing to do for our veterans, so we added it onto the warrant. Article 11, that is the adoption of the budget. That's the standard budget, and I'll be having, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, I'm working on that, given the new healthcare numbers, but we'll have that done by the end of the month and on to FinCom for their meetings. Article 12 is a little bit of a, I would say, housekeeping or administrative article. So this is regarding the McDonald's project that was done down on Main Street and Ash Street. And apparently a sidewalk on Ash Street there was sort of in dispute. But as part of what CPDC negotiated during the whole McDonald's project, is that going to clearly become our sidewalk. I think it's already an existing sidewalk, but in terms of the legal title, that will remain our sidewalk, and we'll clean that up. It'll be essentially, I think, a gift to the town from McDonald's to clear up that one issue. Article 13 is High Street, Haven Street, and you've seen variations of this article before. The big difference here is that we are not asking for any additional borrowing. I got the message loud and clear at the last select board meeting when we talked about this in town meeting. We still have a $2.5 million MassWorks grant that we'd like to use, and there's other grant funding as well. So this is just essentially to do a smaller version of the project using the grant funding that we already have so we don't lose it, but not asking for any additional borrowing. And I think Ryan is on the Zoom if there's any questions after, if you have any questions about the project itself. It's much scaled down, but it would still be beneficial, we think, to the downtown. Article 14, I'm holding for funding for pickleball. I think at your next meeting, we will be talking about pickleball, the cost of the pickleball courts, and what that will be. Obviously, there are some donations there and some grants, but obviously we're going to have to borrow. It's not a debt exclusion; it's within the limit, but we're going to have to borrow to fund the remainder of that project. So we'll have some hard numbers at the next meeting. I think we do have the numbers, but we're going to present them at the next meeting as well. Article 15 is the lead replacement program, and that's something we've done before. It's funded through the Water Enterprise Fund, and it's something I think the last time we did it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But getting the lead and the lead pipes out, mitigation of the lead, is something that's important for our community. So we want to finish that up. So Ryan, again, our town engineer, asked that we put that on for this warrant. And again, it's borrowing, but it's funded through the water fund. And the Article 16 is something we were just made aware of. Essentially, we have to change this came through CPDC, but also we've gotten some information from FEMA on this regarding the flood plan bylaw. There's some administrative changes. It's not changing all that much. Andrew's working on some more background on this, but it is a requirement that we have to update the flood plan bylaw and some of the maps to comply with insurance and whatnot. So that would be Article 16, and Article 17 is your standard, removal of town meeting members, and that's something we do every year. So that's the brief overview. Like I said, the two big articles are going to be presented separately for Killam and Recal. That's going to be on a special town meeting. We want that special town meeting to be on May 1st. Hopefully we'll deal with it that night. And then usually we deal with the budget on the second night of town meeting, because of the special town meeting, we'll be dealing with the budget on the third night. Unless we finish up super early on May 1st and we're able to move on to the budget, we would be able to do that, but I'm anticipating the third night will be the budget night this time around. So that's generally your overview. Again, you have some time before you close. If there's any questions or any additional materials you require, I'm happy to provide them.
Are you trying to talk, Carlo, or?
Sorry, I was on mute. I
Yeah.
said, thank you, Matt.
Thank
The rule.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll go if that's okay,
Yeah.
Carl. So I'd love for you to share with us more information, particularly about 13, the High Street Haven Street revised project.
Mhm.
Maybe present to the board what's being thought about.
Mhm.
What's involved in 15? I understand it's borrowing, but it's from the some of the water fund, sewer fund,
Yes.
water or sewer or both.
I think it's is it
Like
water?
water
Water. I
enterprise.
think
Water. Okay, yeah, just to see how much we're kind of pulling out of that
Okay.
proposal. And the HEROAC Part 2, just to know what it is, I think would be
Yes.
great to hear more. So
Yep. I'll send you a bulletin on that to explain that. In terms of High Haven, I mean, Ryan, are you on the call right now?
Yeah, he is.
Yes, I'm on.
Could you, I think I stated it correctly in terms of we're not gonna borrow and how we're gonna fund it. Could you maybe say something about how the project's been scaled down a little, if you have a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, maybe if you wanted to share that map, it might be very easy to
Okay.
show the limit.
Caitlin, do you have the map that I emailed you earlier, from
Yep,
Ryan?
1 second.
Yeah, if we could put that up, might as well do it now if that's okay, Mark, just so I have Ryan on the call, so.
That's perfect.
You see this?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so when we presented this the first time to the group, we always sort of had an initial thought in mind that we may be seeing crazy pricing, and so we broke this down right from the beginning. So you've seen this slide before. The big difference between what we presented the last time and what we've scaled back to is the initial project was anything that was blue and green. Now we're just down to the green section, which is the MassWorks section, which we got that $2.6 million project for, grant for. And we're looking to use local funding to make up the difference in our match for that. And so the primary design elements that are in this would be a much needed upgrade to the signal at Woburn Street. We still have that pedestrian crossing improvements that are going to be happening at High and Haven, and also the safer crossing at Washington Street, along with some various bump outs here or there on Green Street and in the parking area. So I think this is a great project. It scales it back. We still have the ability to use the MassWorks grant funding. And basically that's what we've reduced it down to. So no borrowing to what Matt had said, just local funds that we do have left over that we can put towards the project.
how much in local funds, and is that in the capital improvement plan?
So the local funds will be coming from 4 different sources. So we're making up the difference between 4 million and the 2.6 that we have in grant money. So we're looking at the Smart Growth District, which is in this area, the sustainability, and then we have money left over from West Street road improvements from a while back that can be transferred over into this, which is a light project, as well as a contribution from the downtown water main improvement project, which we anticipated contributing to that from the water fund because of all the work that we did in the downtown over the past couple of years with the water main improvement. So those are the 4 funds that'll be tapped to make up the difference.
So Ryan, those are all existing funds?
Those are, yes, so there's the, all 4 existing funds, correct.
Cool. And in terms of I understood the Woburn Street light in particular is great. what are the other things that are envisioned along High?
So what you'll see along High Street primarily is you'll see some planting islands that break up that asphalt up and down that area, which we have some trees and some shade trees put in there. You also have some shorter crossings, one particularly at Washington Street, where we have an RRFB, which is those rectangular rapid flashing beacons. They'll be going in there. We're still looking at the tabletop type design on Haven and High Street. Looks like we'll be able to make those improvements as well as the inviting sort of wall area at the depot. And again, we're also shortening up a lot of the crossings at Green Street, at the Haven and High Street area as well. So a lot of massive improvements, I think, that we're still getting for the project. The only thing that we're missing would be any improvements to the upper Haven Street area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris?
Thanks, Carlo, I'm back. I had on Article 4, Matt, the firewall thing, if you can find out how many that is, because $60,000 pains me for a firewall upgrade.
Yeah.
If it's like a dozen for various remote sites, et cetera, or is this just one, and then I'm very pained?
Right. I think Kevin is on the call. He may be able to answer that. Kevin, are you available to answer a question regarding the firewall?
He's coming on.
Okay.
Yep, I am. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we are. Yep. Why don't you go ahead? Did you hear Chris's question?
Yeah, I did. So, yeah, I agree. It is a lot of money. It isn't a single firewall, and we've based our ask on a similar project that the Reading School Department just completed. We have a smaller scale, but similar task. So it's a little bit less than what their ask is. We don't have an official quote for this yet. It's 2 separate firewalls working in a fault-tolerant way at 2 separate sites with 2 separate ISPs and some configuration that goes along with that. So I agree. It's not in line with the last time we had to upgrade our firewall. What's prompting this upgrade need is we've experienced 2 separate outages that just are the result of a piece of equipment that doesn't appear to be very trustworthy and is probably a little longer than we would have liked to have had it. Does that get to what you're asking?
Yeah, is like a subscription built into this too, or how is it working?
Yeah, it does come with a few-year subscription for the security services on both firewalls.
So then in the future, we're gonna end up having to renew that, right? And that'll get included in some budget item?
Yeah, and we do have built into the operating budget regular, our current firewall subscription renewal. This will obviously be twice that because it's 2 firewalls. But we'll have to talk about that in a few years if it's too far out of line with what we've already got budgeted for.
Alrighty. And then I just had one for Chris Cole on the Maine and Salem light that probably got hit while we've had this meeting going on at this point. So where's that getting moved to? Or like, is it getting moved a foot over, or what are we doing with it?
So, and Ryan, as personal town engineer, can jump in if he wants, but basically it's being moved north on Main Street by about 10 feet, I believe, just to get it away from the intersection so a truck coming around the corner is not going to clip.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people complain that it gets hit, like 6 times or something like that in the last 6 months. Like, all right, so it's good to see that that's getting addressed, because half the time if we don't find the person, we're paying for it. So, okay. That's all I got, Carlo. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Karen, anything?
Unmute. No, I'm good. Pretty straightforward. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Mark asked my question about Article 13. I'm glad you had a map handy because, so I heard Brian say 4 million, so we're contributing 1.2? Is that what I heard?
No, the grant is 2.5, I believe.
2.5.
2.6.
2.6, sorry.
And did I hear a $4 million number? We're contributing 1.4?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. No, that was good. I'm glad we're using that money and to spruce that place up down there, and hopefully we can get some more good tenants, some retail tenants down there too. That would be nice.
Great. Ryan, did you want to say anything more regarding the lead replacement program? I think Mark said you wanted some more information on that. You were. Go ahead, Ryan. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. We've started this program. This is sort of a project that I've been working on, I'm pretty passionate about. We started this a long time ago. We're in the phase now. We're replacing all the lead service lines, and that also includes what we call galvanized too. It has the same ability of lead, hold on to lead. So we're replacing those as well. We not only replace them on public property, we replace them on private property as well. And we're able to do that through up until this year, a loan, 10-year loan only, no interest loan through the MWRA. They've, as of, I think, late 2024, voted to also do a 25% grant portion to that now. So we have a 25% grant, 75% no interest loan over 10 years. So it's a really great opportunity for us to get in there and continue to remove them. I will also point out that it's not only good to do this, but we are mandated to do it as well. So everyone has received a letter if they had anything close to a lead service that we believe through the records at their house.
Cool.
I hope that helps.
How long of a project is it until you got it all out?
That's a great question. We made great headway since 2022. We've removed 206, somewhere around there, lead services. I believe we only have around 154 remaining, and that's a pretty great number considering we have somewhere around, I think, 7,800 records or services that we take care of. There's an additional 76 galvanized that we have to remove as well. So if you somewhere around 250 plus that we have to remove. So we're really in good shape.
So is this like a couple of years to?
I'm thinking probably another 2 years. So this, and then we start to ramp down a little bit, and maybe we don't maybe have to go for another 1.5 million. But I would say 2 more years probably of this. It's kind of hard to say because it depends on how. It's easy to get the first group done. It's a little bit easy, like it's not as easy to get the second group, and then it starts to get harder and harder as we get closer to the end.
Got it. And where does the, I know that it's interest rate loans and grant, where is it? Is this water?
This is out of the water enterprise, that's correct.
Overhit that thing hard. Cool, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
No other questions? We're gonna move on to future agendas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to everyone for saying.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Chris.
Thanks.
So the 4th is pretty much set. Pickleball, because the numbers weren't ready. We're closing the warrant. And Mark, are you going to be ready for Commissioners of Trust Funds update?
So we met last week, and I guess the question is, what would the board like to see?
I mean, I'm speaking for myself, I guess, kind of verbatim, give us an update on where we stand and what's changed and what hasn't.
So kind of more than numbers, just kind of showing the funds and what's happening?
I think so. I mean, Mark, have we done this ever?
Yeah, so I think 3-ish years ago, Beth Kleppeis, I think, did an update to the board. And she is kind of Beth Kleppeis was the town treasurer, then town accountant, and was on the trust fund commissioners for years and years and years, and has all the history. And in fact, we should find her presentation is probably the right thing to do to get it started. So the information she has relates also to, what's that fund about? What are the restrictions on that fund? That kind of stuff. So I think if we want that, there's more prep that's going to be required to do that. If it's more kind of taking a look at where the funds are, what's happening, how they're used, things like that today, then could either ask the town treasurer, who's on she's a trust fund commissioner, Diane, to do that, or Neil Cohen is the chair. And kind of, at the board's pleasure.
Yeah, what does the board think? I think an all-encompassing is nice, but having an update would also be nice, because we haven't had one in a bit, but what do the other board members think?
I'm fine with whatever.
Karen, any thoughts?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do believe Select Board Member Murphy also asked for this. We would like to, it has been longer than 3 years, Mark. It's been a long time. And as a newer member, my impression was Select Board Member Murphy brought this up so that we could, A, get a full accounting of what trust funds are out there, B, understand what they can use for, and so C, I'd like to make sure that I can rest assured that the trust funds commissioners are freeing up as many funds as possible. We keep coming back to the hospital funds specifically, time and time again, and so no, I think we need. It's been a long time since we've had any kind of overview. For newer members, they have no clue, and I don't remember us ever having an overview of the trust funds. What trust funds exist?
I don't either. We've talked about it, but I don't recall a line item by line item.
So I'm okay if they need more time, but
I'm okay too.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I think all-encompassing, and maybe that's even after the election, what's more appropriate, or on the 18th. The 18th's looking a little bit light right now. I hate to say that, and not get in trouble, but
I think it's a general thing that the board needs to do. We've had some turnover, and I cannot even remember a single presentation. And in times like this, when insurance is going up 13% and we're all seeing lots of inflation, it's really important that we are not letting trust funds just sit there and not be used appropriately.
I'm looking at the 18th and I see master plan discussions. That could be a good tie-in. So why don't we give us all more time?
Yeah, I think you may want to push it a little bit further out. So the next trust fund commissioner meeting is March 11th.
Okay.
And I think it would be, so I think it's fine to say, kind of to go through things if there are particular areas. So for example, hospital funds, that's worthy of spending a little bit of time with town council also.
Yeah.
And if there are other funds that people want more information about, so basic information, when was it established, what are the restrictions on it? Those I think are doable, maybe you target April 1st if that's possible. If there are more specifics, I think you want to get town council involved. So hospital fund is one, definitely. You're gonna need some opinions from her. If there are others that are in a similar category that people are, what's going on with this one? How does that one work? It says X, can we do Y? Maybe it's worthwhile having some questions brought up in advance so they can prepare for it. And I think that you probably want the chair of the commissioners and the town accountant probably to participate in that at least.
All right, I agree. So I'm going to just leave it where we'll hope to do it sometime in April. I'll work with Matt.
Okay.
We'll do follow up and So that, I just wanted to go over that, thank you, and, I think we have enough for the 4th, but,
I have that executive session minutes, Carlo, for the 4th at the
Okay.
end.
Yep, I added that too on my other spreadsheet.
Okay.
thank you, and if we could get an update, Matt, whether it's an agenda item, which you might need more time, or an update on what Paul sent us on the WRA assessment.
Oh, yeah, right.
If we could get at least an update, and then probably it'd have to be a future agenda item, to see where this goes.
Yep. Yeah.
It
It is, I mean, he's put together a good letter. It's a lot of work looking into what exactly
Yeah.
happened back then.
But I
Sharon's
think
been
it's
looking at it.
warranted, I think it's warranted.
Yeah, no, I understand. Sharon's been looking at it with me too, so we'll,
Okay.
we'll,
Yeah,
we'll continue to work on that.
It's not, drop other things that we need to do, but
Yeah.
given all the work he did, and just from reading it, not knowing all the nuances and the legal stuff, he seems pretty good.
Yep.
At what he's come up with, so
Right.
I don't want to discount that at all.
No, me neither, yeah.
And if, again, not an agenda, but if we can get an update on at the next meeting, on when people can apply for the second water meter. I think we're getting close.
Yep.
And then, I think, guys, we can talk about maybe on the 4th, how we want to manage the master plan discussion. Have some maybe, talking points. Discuss a few now, but I think that'll be important for our next meeting, how we want to, have that agenda item laid out. So I'd welcome some thoughts on that, either in an email or, at the next meeting. I think that'd be helpful.
Can I just add something, Carlo, too?
Yeah.
So on the 18th, Covanta, that's now called Reworld, I guess. They're our company where we dispose of trash. They proposed a new contract. It's actually one that we like, and we think it's beneficial to the town. So we want to present that on the 18th. I think officials from the company themselves would be there. We have a little time because it expires at the end of the fiscal year, but we want to get ahead of it in case there's any issues on it. So I'd add that to the 18th if that's okay.
Yeah, Caitlin, if you can have that, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
And just for clarity, that's the trash disposal, not the trash pickup.
That's not the pickup, that's not Republic.
Because everyone cares about the pickup.
Right, they care about the
That's
pickup,
nothing to
this
do
is
with
the
it.
actual disposal, yeah. So this is actually, I think, the easy part, so, yeah.
Yep, no, I agree, thank you. Anything else, everybody?
Not for me.
Yes, please, when you have a chance.
Say that again?
Oh, I have my hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so I would like to put our annual meeting with the Reading Ice Authority Arena on the schedule. When times get tough, we need to, be paying attention to revenue sources, and we have a lease agreement, and we did not receive any income in the last year with them. That would be a great time to get an update on what we can expect going forward. We could invite Sharon if we need to, or just share the info with her. And it can be May or late April. And, I asked before and I'm gonna ask again. I think we need to have another, we need to have an either agenda item on the Davenport litigation or an executive session, Mr. Chair, as warranted. I am very concerned about the misinformation that is circulating out in the public now. And I know Matt's doing what he can, but as a board, we haven't talked about it in a month. And it wasn't on the warrant, and I'm actually now scratching my head. Why is it not coming before town meeting? And so we either need to have an agenda item to talk about this or executive session, whatever makes sense.
Well, I think obviously executive session, but I'll talk to Matt about it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think I'm not saying you're wrong, Cam, but I think we did get a check from the Reading Ice Arena last year?
No, we didn't, no. We did the year before, and then we didn't the most recent year, due to them wanting to replenish their reserves after the roof project. So we'd be looking for projections for this year.
Okay, I don't remember, but okay, that's fine.
We didn't get a payment for the calendar year ended, like July 1, 2024.
Carl McFadden was in here like 4 or 5 months ago with a check in his hand and walked out with a full room in here. I forget what was on the agenda that.
All right, did you just interrupt, because that's just rude?
No, I didn't hear. You were done, Karen.
But we have an annual meeting with these folks, and I'm just asking for it to be scheduled.
Right, but saying they didn't give us money is a different story.
We have had 1 year with no lease payment. That's a fact. We had a generous lease payment, and it was late March, and it could have been 2024, and it was for the fiscal year ending July 1, 2023, and then we had a year where we're not getting anything, and I want to know what's coming up in the future. That's how that's worked, and I'm sure our liaison will confirm that.
Okay, I think we normally meet them, have them in the summer, but I'll see if they're available in May or June. Okay, anything else?
May is fine. Thanks.
Anything else? Anyone? Seeing none, on to minutes. I don't know if anyone had edits to send to Caitlin. Hopefully they did already.
I had a couple of small ones which I didn't send, but they're very, very small.
Okay. Well, we can do that first, Caitlin, if you want to pull them up.
Yeah, 1 second.
And I sent you some, Caitlin, as well. Brief as well.
Mark, you want to start with yours?
Okay, on the bottom of the second page, where it says $30 million threshold, is just friendly amendment. You just put a dollar sign in front of the 30.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. And then the second one, Council on Aging Liaison, next page, page 3. We actually have 2 liaisons, so I think it should say co-liaison. All right, so Karen is a liaison, Chris is the other liaison.
Thank you, Mark. That was one of my changes.
Got it. So I think there are at least 2 instances of that.
You mean on the vote?
We have 2 liaisons. It's not clear from these meeting minutes. It looks like we didn't have one. We have 2 liaisons to the Council on Aging. That's all.
So
right, but Karen, you already were a liaison, so it was added.
So, it's not worded to sort of reflect that we have 2 of them.
Oh, okay, yeah, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's a friendly also.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, Chris, you were just sending yours to Caitlin.
Yes.
Let's see, let me grab.
Karen, do you have any, you said you have some minor ones, you said?
I think that was the only one. The Council on Aging.
Okay, so for the parking kiosk discussion, Chris wanted me to put at the very beginning that Haley stated he would only be speaking on the CVS parking lots.
Okay.
And then after the first vote, he wanted me to put it in again that he left the room for the next discussion and vote. Which let's see. I thought I put that in there, but maybe
Yeah, it is in
No.
the second one is.
Yes, no, it mentioned just vote. I made sure to put discussion because when I left, you did have a discussion on what was going to transpire, et cetera. It wasn't just a flat right into a vote.
Agree. Haley left the room for the next vote.
Yeah,
Just
I wanted
comment that it
it,
was
no, so it's Haley left the room for the next discussion
Discussion
and
and
vote.
vote.
Okay.
I just want it more clear that a discussion
Yeah.
actually happened instead of right into the vote.
Gotcha.
And that's it.
Okay.
Okay, and then when you're done.
He said he was done.
Okay, sorry. So Herrick noted that she voted against this.
Where are you?
I'm under, parking kiosk discussion. I want to include, the park committee.
Where? What do you mean? Where are you?
Herrick noted that.
Oh, against the Will the Town meeting, deputy chief and park committee.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
thank you.
Got it. Okay. All right, guys, someone wanna do the honors?
Move to approve the meeting minutes from February 4, 2025 as amended.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mark?
yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes,
Carlo, yes. 4-0. Thank you. One more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Roll call vote. Mark?
yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
yes.
Carlo, yes. And we are adjourned at 9:31. Thank you, everybody.